Welcome to Lance Wallnau with Level 10 Living. And this is one of my favorite shows we do because we talk about you and about exactly what goes in to being able to see manifest what your talents, gifts, and abilities are able to produce. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day we're all concerned about global events. We're living in this suction of news cycles. But you're not going to answer to Jesus for who is the governor in your state or who's in Congress. That may affect your livelihood or your future or your freedom. But you're not going to have to answer for what other people are doing. You will answer for what you did with your gifts, talents, and abilities. And I remember this came to me very, very strongly. I don't share this much because my political crowd doesn't want to hear it. But I can remember reading where Jesus was talking to Peter and John. And Jesus had just turned to Peter after his resurrection and said to him, taught them about how he was going to glorify Jesus in his death. When you were young, you went where you wanted to go, and when you're old, you're going to stretch forth your hands, and another's going to take you where you would rather not go. And this, he says, signifying by what death Peter would glorify God. It's a pretty sobering thought. And then Peter somehow is energized by this personal prophecy. I guess Jesus motivates you when he talks about how you die. And he turns around and he sees John. And he goes, this shows you, in a sense, the beauty of their relationship. Like, this is the resurrected Son of the living God. And the next thing you're doing is, hey, what about him? You want to get some, what's going to happen to him? Because your buddy, you want to know how's he going to die? It's like kind of why you're getting the free information. And Jesus' answer to him was, if I want him to be alive when I return, what business is that of yours? You follow me. Now, I heard, for me, this is Lance, I heard the Holy Spirit say, if I want Donald Trump to be president, what business is that of yours? You follow me. In other words, too many people are living their lives through what other people do. You do your vote, you do your labor, you do your political activity with whatever your accountability is to God. But at the end of the day, what is it to you what I do with them? God's going to do what he's going to do with nations and with people. Your job is dispatch your conscience and your duty and then focus on what you're accountable for, which is what you do. With that thought in mind, I have two people that do an excellent job of coaching, training, and consulting. Carl, my son, who is the coach and the guy that actually has. You remember that? Ever see that movie Good Will Hunting, where Robin Williams plays the therapist that helps Matt Damon really get a breakthrough, get delivered. Carl always reminds me of that kind. I'm always pushing him to get a degree in psychology because he's naturally gifted that way. But
you've been pushing me out of academia for years. You're like, it's all corrupt.
Well,
it's all garbage.
But now I think you ought to. Yeah, you're right. I know. I'm conflicted because of how screwed up universities are. But Mercedes, when I think of screwed up universities,
Lance.
I'm glad that you already graduated and that you got through without getting screwed up.
With a degree in psych and biblical studies, too.
Well,
double majored, so
that completes.
I'll use one to cover Carl.
That completes the team. That's
Thank
why
you.
we have the dream team here, people. All right, Carl, would you please go over to the whiteboard, the flip chart, those of you that are watching by way of podcast. Those of you that are listening by way of podcast cannot see what we're doing in the studio. We put these on Facebook, on YouTube. The artist formerly known as Prince, the Lance Wallnau Show, formerly known as the Lance Wallnau Show.
Well, we're on YouTube again, but we created a new YouTube account, so it's the Lance Wallnau Show. The Lance Wallnau Show.
Well, what was the other one?
Lance Wallnau.
Just Lance.
You don't think they're going to catch on at some point?
There were a lot of Lance Wallnaus up there.
It's not a very creative hide.
Hey, it's not like they're deleting all of the Lance Wallnaus because there's a lot of people pretending to be you up there, and so I just gave the green light to go and remove those people. And so
pretending to be Lance Wallnau?
Yeah. There's somebody up there, like 22,000 people following them, pretending to be you. So
imitation is the highest form of flattery.
How could you do that to your father?
With deep fakes, ladies and gentlemen. That's how I do it.
All right, so Carl, try to describe to the listening audience what you're doing And would you summarize what we covered in the last podcast regarding the Collins model called the Hedgehog? Because because I guess a hedgehog is, once it gets its burrowing its hole, it's relentless in creating what it wants to create. So go ahead, Carl. You're drawing 3 overlapping circles in a Venn diagram. For
Absolutely. Absolutely, I am. One thing I do want to throw in there, just because we already started talking politics, the hedgehog is the symbol of the libertarians, and we are the best political party. Now, these 3 overlapping circles that you see here, what do they represent? This is going to be best in the world. What can you be the best in the world at? Maybe even just the top 10, because you got to figure there's, 7 billion plus people out there. So if you're in the top 10, that's a really highly coveted, difficult area to be in. High challenge, high reward, great skill set required in order to be the best in the world at it. Now, the other circles here, right up here, we're going to do love. What are you passionate about? What gets you up out of bed in the morning? What prevents you from falling asleep at night because you're just so excited and eager to do the task before you, to do the thing that's in front of you? Or maybe the vision of the future is so plain to you, and plain as in like vivid and vibrant and easily noticeable, that it's actually luring you like a magnetic pull, drawing you in. What's that giant passion that's inside of you that you're super passionate about? And then finally, what drives your economic engine? What is it that actually feeds your family? What is it that houses you, that puts a roof over your head? What is it that puts gas in your car? What is it that helps you get from point A to point B to point C? And when we look at this right up in the center area where they all 3 overlap, what you're best in the world at, what you're incredibly passionate about, and what drives your economic engine, when those 3 overlap, that's the hedgehog concept. And that's what Jim Collins recommends. The companies that went from good to great, that's what they focused on. That's what they did. And we want you to do that in your own lives. So that's a very quick summarization of Good to Great's hedgehog concept. Back to you, Lance.
Oh, that's very good. So those Venn diagrams are so useful, people. You can put body, soul, and spirit, all kinds of things into those circles, and they all overlap. And
Please don't confuse the audience, Lance.
I'm channeling my Norm Macdonald right now, and Carl, that's kind of great. Now, what happens if you got a passion and you're best in the world at, Carl, and you got those 2 things? When you got the best in the world at and you got a passion, what's the problem with that? I love what I'm doing and I'm doing what I love. Well, I'm happy, right?
Yeah, well, you might be happy, but you're probably going to be hungry, right? Because it's not driving your economic engine. You're not making any money on it. So you can be the best busker in the world, right? You're absolutely the best guitar player, singer-songwriter that the world has ever seen, but you're not opening up your guitar case, so you're not getting any money. You're not going out there. You're not being in front of an audience. Maybe you're just singing to a brick wall.
Okay, so it's not good enough. You got to have that fun. Even in nonprofit, even if you're going to be a ministry, you got to have to figure out how to get a mailing list, how to be able to tell people what you're doing, how to land that 1 or 2 donors that are going to be able to underwrite your ministry. Carl, talk to me about what happens if, all right, now I figured out what drives my economic engine. I got that 3rd wheel there. And, oh boy, I'm doing what I'm best at. And I'm making movies or music or writing books or teaching math. I'm the best at this, and I'm making a living doing it. What's wrong with that?
Probably not going to be able to sustain motivation very long. You're probably not going to be very passionate. You're not going to be alive or brought life by the project or whatever it is. So you're probably just going to be living for the weekend. You're living for your hobbies. I'm living for 5 o'clock because as soon as that time clock hits, I'm out of here. I get to do what I want to do. Doesn't matter that I'm the best in the world at it. Doesn't matter that I'm adequately compensated for it. If I'm not passionate about it, I'm not going to sustain the motivation.
I was with Kim Clement, went out to dinner with Kim out there in California at his house, and he says, hey, I want to take you to a restaurant over here. It's a kind of a dive out here. We go off into it seems like we're going off into the desert. And there's a little strip mall, maybe 4 stores, like a barber shop, a restaurant, a bar. And we go into this bar, and it's got all these dollar bills hanging from the ceiling. It's kind of a weird-looking place, right? And we're sitting there, and who comes out with his band? Jeff Bridges, the actor.
Yep.
It's like Russell Crowe. The guys that are the actors, now he can be doing anything he wants. He always wanted to have a band. Yep. So he's doing his passion, but it's not paying the bills, but the bills are paid so he could do his passion. That's another way it can work, right?
Yeah. It could work like that. But again, that's not the hedgehog concept. That's just making it work.
That's just making it work. Now, okay, but if you're passionate about what you're doing and you're monetizing your passion, what does that mean? Is there any drawbacks there? I don't think so. What could you say about that?
Yeah, what we have in the notebook is just, I get paid to do this. You've got to be kidding me. But again, it's
That's
not
how I
focusing-
feel. That's actually how I feel. I get paid to do this. My dad used to say to me, how do you make a living just talking?
Yeah.
I said, I don't know.
Ask Johnny Carson. No, I'm just kidding. He was sleight of hand as well. But no, if you're not the best in the world at it, or you're not even the best in the company at it, then you're not going to be getting the positive reinforcement from your immediate circle, telling you that this is actually what you were built for. This is what you're here for. This is your calling. You're not going to get any of that type of sticky goodness, that none of the favor aspects that go along with being the best at something and then having the mantle of that be evident to other people. You won't get that positive affirmation or that reinforcement from your group, in my opinion.
No,
if you're not the best in the world, if you're not even the best in the company.
You are. So, Carl, we got to do is we got to flip that flip chart over. Flip that flip chart over. And you guys got any questions on this? Mercedes, I'm telling you, nonprofits, you can monetize your nonprofit. You could be preaching, you could be ministering. My wife, Annabelle, has that. She's got five storage units furnishing families of Texas. And she's doing what is a legitimate labor. She works all day helping take care of the poor single moms in Texas, in her circle anyway. And but she's having to work on how to make that economic engine work, because I'm helping to underwrite it, but she doesn't want me to be the sole responsibility. So she has to get her vision out, and she's doing that now, on the difference she's making with in the lives of other people. So even a nonprofit, I keep coming back to Charles Grandison Finney, the great revivalist. Now I remember the stories he wrote in his autobiography about how he had to sell the family cow. This is where they got their milk from. But he had to sell it because he needed to buy a traveling trunk, because he was gone so much. He needed a trunk for all of his life, so he could go on the road. And he was talking about how he remembered praying for God to help him out. And part of the way God helped him was he sent two brothers who were businessmen that loved his ministry, and they virtually underwrote the revivals that shaped America. Two business guys, the Tappan brothers, Louis Tappan. Powerful story. Anyway, so what are your thoughts, Mercedes Sparks?
I just think it's funny when you talk about monetizing a nonprofit, because it's like the whole point of like a nonprofit is that it would not be a for-profit, but we're talking to people who probably predominantly aren't in nonprofits and want to figure out how to monetize what they're really good at and what they're passionate about. And so I would say oftentimes you need to go find a new skill set in order to do that. Because I think the reality is, if people are listening to this, they're probably working at a job that they may or may not like, but are doing it because they need to pay the mortgage, they need to pay their rent, they've got kids at home, we got to eat. I want to go to Cheesecake Factory this weekend with my spouse. And so that's, I think, a lot of the people we're talking to. So I think it's a bit of a luxury to sit here and to daydream about it. But then at least once you get clarity on what you're best at, what you're passionate about, I want to exhort you and say, I think the reality is you're going to have to go learn a new skill set. You're going to have to learn, how do I sell stuff online? How do I create an e-course? How do I build a marketing list? What even is that? Will people listen to me? How do I live stream on Facebook or on, Instagram? How do I sell? So there's a lot of practical
You guys want to do that?
skills.
You guys want to learn those skills?
Yes,
Put
Lance.
your hand up. Put your hand up. Go to AskLanceNow.com and tell me if you want us to teach you that. Because here's a little secret I want to share with everybody here. What if your passion is something that you can monetize, but you're not able to really pursue your passion because it's not what you're best in the world at? So think about this. You're passionate about something, but you're not really skillful in it.
It's like those singers. You ever watch those shows with the singers where they go up and they think they're really great, but they're really not that great?
Are you talking
But they're
about,
passionate about it.
William Hung.
Yeah. And nobody's and they're in front of the whole world. They're belting out these. They're putting their heart into it, and nobody ever pulled them aside and said, "Honey, that's just not going to work.
Yeah, Dad, I think it was you who told me that. Like, can you imagine the friend group of these people? The audacity of them to be like, you're great, you got to get out there. People are going to love your voice. It's like they're sadistic.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and so I don't want to lose this thought, Mercedes,
Yep.
because I'm going somewhere with this, and it's getting away from me right now. Okay. If you have a passion, but you don't have the skill, which happens,
Yes, it does.
then, but you want to be living in the area of your passion. What I always said about, like, what's that show, America's Got Talent, or what's the name of the show? What is
American
it?
Idol.
American Idol.
American
yeah.
Idol. That's where I first started thinking about this. The secret is what you want to do. I heard one guy say it. He had like a show. He said, I wanted to be the performer, but I realized the audience was telling me that wasn't what I was best in the world at. So what I found was I did have a skill for finding talent. Now I run the show. It's my show. I get to do anything I want to do, and it's my program. And it's because I put a team together that's best in class in what they do, and I manage them. So my passion is now lived because I've got other people with the skill working for me that are doing what needs to be done so I could do what I love to do, and I make money doing it.
Is that Simon Cowell? Or is
Yeah.
that one of the
Basically, he found out he wasn't a performer. He was a great director and a great critic, and he was great at being a celebrity, rating
Bad guy,
being the bad guy who rated other performers. But he himself couldn't get on the stage. But he found out how to get in the show. And I think there's something about that that is kind of interesting. All right, we only have 11 minutes. I'm sorry. That has to be good for somebody. But you know, back to your point, Mercedes. And I want to argue with on this. But listen, I know my people. I know my people. And many of them have worked. Andrew Womack. When I go out and meet Andrew Womack's folks, great people out there. But I'm meeting people that are retired. They're already retired, and somehow they made the pilgrimage out there to Karis in Colorado because they have the money to be able to take a year or two off to go to Bible college. Let me tell you what I know about my people. That aging demographic out there, sure, I know you've had to scrape. You got many people out there that are working hard to get by. But some of you, your real passion is your ministry, and you never got to do it. Therefore, I'm talking to you. You want to learn how to monetize and underwrite and generate the resources to provide for the vision that you've got. And this is where the marketplace is so important. That Paul worked on making tents until the cash flow was such that he could not make tents and he could just do 100% preaching. A lot of you folks out there need to know that it isn't either or. In the internet world, you could be making money while you sleep. When I found that out, and I was grinding away, traveling on the road and preaching and ministering after I left the business world, a light went off. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you could be earning an income while you sleep. And I thought, how can you earn an income while you sleep? And that was the early days of the internet. Now you'd all joke about it. But listen, back then when we had cordless telephones, I was alive to see that phenomena. You're all walking around with your little phones right now. You don't know, when I was a kid, we were stuck within 5 feet of that phone, and whatever we wanted to say to our friends, our parents could hear it.
Hey, now you guys also had the briefcase cell phones. You could have used that.
No, that was kind of like the I Spy Man from U.N.C.L.E. version. None of us kids had that. We had
Well, your dad did. So
the
I know
only
you had
way
access to it.
if you wanted to date back in the day, you were lucky if your parents had a long cord on one phone, and you always went to that phone. It's for you, and you go to that phone. You know why? Because you could snake that cord, close the door, and talk to your friend behind that door. And your parents, once they caught that, who are you talking to? Get off the phone. I'm expecting a call. You guys don't remember those days.
Didn't they
I
have like a
remember that.
party line too, or something like that? Like a neighborhood.
Oh my
Everybody was on the
gosh.
same line.
I didn't have that, but that was also there, which is like other people would be on the call.
All right, let's wrap up this segment.
I'm sorry. But you guys
What a
are
weird
listening
way.
to me. I know you know what I'm talking about. I'm just polishing off the memories. Remember when?
Just to clarify, I know nonprofits have to be profitable. I'm just saying with the new 87,000 new IRS agents that I'm not looking to make a profit in our nonprofit. I'm just getting by. We're just paying everybody's salary, serving the Lord over here.
I'm talking to my people out there that are trying to craft the life of their dreams, and many of them want to go into ministry, and you don't have to stop. You don't have to settle that for less.
You still have to be profitable. I agree. I think that's fiscal responsibility. I think that it's poor stewardship to not be responsible with the funds that are sown to you. So yes, I would agree with that.
Stick with me, people. Stick with me. I'm going to help you. Because we have a company that does business. We have a nonprofit that is working with the work of nonprofit. And there's a way to do both. It's different set of rules, but there's a way to do both. And you don't have to think either or, you can think both and. Now, Carl, would you please put 4 circles up on the board because we're going to go to the Covey model.
Overlapping circles,
Overlapping circles. It's kind of like a Venn diagram on steroids.
I think it's still the Venn diagram.
It's still a Venn diagram with
But
4
with
overlapping
4,
circles? I
right?
thought a Venn is 3.
Oh, let me check.
Nope. A Venn diagram is simply
Overlapping
concentric
circles?
circles.
All right, so Carl, what I want you to put up there in the top one is talent.
Sure.
That goes along with what are you best in the world at? Then over on the left, I want you to put passion. So far, you see the Covey model? If you're listening on the podcast with nearly 800,000 other people, we are now with 4 circles. And it's north, south, east, and west, all overlapping. Talent is on top. Passion is on the left. And now we're going to put...
It sounds like a horse race.
now we're going to put...
The horse's name is Friday.
The horse's name was Friday.
all right. Now, Covey goes a little further here. Covey's a brilliant guy. We only got 6 minutes. See how much we can get done in this. Covey says, stop. If you want to know what drives your economic engine, you have to get clear about what need are you meeting. So put the word need there. You hear that, people? Ooh, that's rich. The economic engine is really determined by the need you are meeting. Why do people pay so much for music or for comedy? It meets a need.
We believe in the artist.
The artist. So it's possible to do something, and it's not always, it's like
Escapism, too. I think
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
it meets a need to escape.
That's a huge part of the GDP. Escapism.
Really?
All right, let's
Escape
go.
rooms dedicated to it. Anyway, go on.
Escape rooms. Drugs is escape.
Some people watching politics is escape.
Is it?
Oh, don't go meddling now. All
This
right,
is
now.
called the mirror, Dad.
Passion, talent, need. What need are you meeting? But here's what Covey brought up as a final 4th, folks. This is for you. It's called conscience. It's what needs to be met that you feel convicted you're to be a part of meeting. You see, that conscience is so powerful because where those 4 points overlap, in terms of your skills, in terms of your passion, in terms of the need you're meeting, and the conviction in your soul, the finger of God on your conscience saying, aren't you called to deal with this? See, I think a lot of people right now are playing it safe. They sense that, they could get canceled. And they're afraid to say something, but their conscience, they're selling out their conscience. Now, hear that where they overlap, where all 4 of those points overlap, is the key. I'm telling you, Covey was brilliant. It's your authentic voice.
Your inner voice.
Your inner voice,
authentic
and put
voice.
/ authentic voice. Because you see, everyone here has a certain sound. In all of the universe, every person's sound is a little bit different. Your voice imprint, your thumbprint, your iris. It's amazing, the diversity that is in the creation of God. Even though there's a singularity of design, there's infinite diversity in expression. And you have a voice that pierces the darkness when you're able to utilize the skill that God gave you to meet the need that God enabled you and gifted you to meet, and that you are doing it with conscience that is walking with the integrity of the burden of God, running the race as God shows you, and you're answering the call. even at personal price, even at a personal cost, you're suddenly, when you speak, there is a resonance, a sound that is an authentic sound. It's the sound of who you are. And it's the sound of God through your voice. It's God speaking through your voice. We call it the anointing. And it's a powerful thing when you see people that are living a life that is a voice. And it's very rare.
Yeah.
But passion, talent, need. And Carl, we have this on page 20 and page 21
Yes, sir.
of our manual. And what are we working on right now? It's called Your Ultimate Life Strategy. This is part of a 4-part series, 4 separate components, 4 phases that everyone goes through in the journey of life. We give multiple models from Covey to Clinton to Collins, the 3 C's so far, I just mentioned. And we literally walk through these various beautiful windows to put you in the middle of the frame of several pictures to examine your life, your talents, your calling, your passion, your gift, your mission. And what is God speaking to you about in your soul? What problem are you called to solve that no one else can solve? What skills do you have that no one else has? Conscience is the voice of God in your spirit that testifies with your spirit. And I wrote some things down on page, we can't get into it now, on page 22, which is the role of communion with God, the role of prophetic intuition, the role of conscience, how your conscience, prophetic intuition, and communing with God are the 3 aspects that feed those that are mighty in spirit. John the Baptist was called mighty in spirit, Jesus, mighty in spirit. It's people that have this communion with God, the clarity of conscience, and the prophetic perception of what to say and do.
If you enter the promo code podcast, you get a whopping 10% off of any of the level 10 curriculum.
We basically suggested you get all 4, but you could go with just one. I mean, it's like 40, I don't know what the price is on an individual module now, but I would say it's like a college curriculum. Get all 4. Get your PhD in perfectly, answering the call of God on your life, the most important school you'll ever go to. And that's going to be at level10living.com. Use the code podcast. If you're listening to this in the car, man, make a decision now, because we're going to pick it up again with our next episode, and we're going to talk about conscience, intuition, communion, how these areas here really are talking about body, soul, and spirit coming into their divine alignment to bring you into actualization, moving in the direction that God's called you to move in, answering the call that is on your life. I want to thank you so much for level10living.com. Level 10 Living with you has been a blessing. We'll see you again in the next episode.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate